Canby. This is the Urban Renewal Agency meeting for June 18th, 2025. I'm calling this meeting to order. Do we have any citizen input, Teresa? No. Okay, then we'll just move right along to the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda, which include the Urban Renewal Agency May 7th, 2025 meeting minutes and the reappointment of member Kim Wigan to the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee with a term ending June 30th of 2028.
Second.
It has been moved by Vice Chair Hodson. There we go. Now I won't have Gordon yelling at me. I turned on my mic. It's been moved by Vice Chair Hodson and seconded by Commissioner Patton to approve the consent agenda that includes the minutes from the May 7, 2025 Urban Renewal Agency meeting and the reappointment of Urban Renewal Budget Committee member Kim Wigan with a term ending 6/30/2028. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Okay. Next, we are going to have a public hearing on the budget. Teresa, do we have anybody signed up online to speak for the public hearing? Okay. We have a public hearing regarding the Urban Renewal Agency supplemental budget, URR 225002, a resolution to adopt the Urban Renewal Agency supplemental budget. The matter presently before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. The public hearing was noticed, and those who wish to speak were instructed to contact the city recorder. We did not receive any requests to speak. Those people who are interested in testifying, either proponents or opponents, please indicate your desire to speak by raising your hand or virtual hand at this time. Seeing none. For longer presentations, proponents may buy a time from one another. In doing so, those in favor or opposed may allocate time to spokesperson who will represent the entire group. All questions must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received both for and against shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. Public hearing will be conducted as follows. We'll have a staff report, questions, if any, by the hearing body and staff. Open the public hearing for testimony. Proponents and opponents will each have 3 minutes. Then we'll close the public hearing. Questions, if any, by the hearing body, and discussion by the hearing body. A decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of this hearing on the matter, or it will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure of the hearing? Seeing none, I guess we will open with the staff report. Scott?
We'll have Finance Director Scott Schlag presenting this.
I wasn't going to put you in the hot seat, George.
Good evening. So in front of you today is just the adopting of a supplemental budget. This is simply just to create, whether it was a recurring error or simply just a longstanding practice in recording on the budget, that the transfer was shown as a material and service category, and it really should be shown as a actual transfer out and other source category. This was actually a conversation I had with our auditors, and they just said, just fix it in 25 and we'll be okay with it. And so that's what this is here to do. It's not taking any money out, not putting any in. The only thing we're doing is making sure this is a supplemental budget, having the opportunity for anybody to speak on it, because what we're really doing is creating a new appropriation category, which is the transfer out. Does that make sense? That's really all we're doing. We're just making sure that we're in compliance with budget law, so that way we can actually have that as an actual category, because like I said, it was sitting as material and services, and we want to make sure that we're showing it as a transfer out going forward. That's really all this is doing.
Okay. Any questions for Scott? Okay. Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Any proponents or opponents? We already know there's not. Okay, I will close the public hearing. Had to be official there. Okay. So now we can consider the resolution.
I move to adopt your 25-002 resolution of the Canby Urban Renewal Agency adopting supplemental budget for the 2024-2025 fiscal year.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Waterman and seconded by Vice Chair Hodson to approve URR 25002, resolution adopting the Urban Renewal Agency supplemental budget. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Moving on to the next agenda item, which is the new budget. Urban Renewal, URR 25003. I'm assuming it's on you again, Scott.
So before you is adopting the budget, making appropriations, and imposing and categorizing taxes for fiscal year '26 of the URA. We are basically following Oregon statute and going through the process that we've done multiple times. So we've gone through budget committee meetings, and we've set everything in motion to be able to come here and get it approved and send off to the county.
Okay. Yes, Vice Chair.
Highlights, any significant highlights from the Urban Renewal Agency budget that the general public should know about?
Highlights as in, can you help guide me to what?
Sure, it's just any significant changes or omissions or things that, reallocations that the budget committee may have made.
I think what the biggest thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we have all of the appropriations to getting to zero, so that way that we either are utilizing most of those funds for the projects that are, or we've got enough to be able to send back to the tax rolls to get back to the jurisdictions. We're just looking into making sure that we're abiding by the county's timeline to close that out. But really, if you notice, what we're approving is to appropriate all funds. And again, it's a budget, it's a guess. But being able to say that at the end of the day, we're going to have zero in that, and we'll be able to close that like intended.
And again, that's June 2026 or?
That's when we make our last payment.
Our last payment is June
Yep,
2026.
in June of 2026.
Any other questions for Scott? I actually have a question. Not for Scott necessarily. Unfortunately, our attorney isn't here. Teresa, maybe you know. I know when we go later in the evening, we're going to approve the city budgets, which require a public hearing. Do we not need a public hearing for this piece or just the supplemental?
That's not something that I know the answer to.
Okay.
I believe public hearing was already done through budget committee
Okay.
opportunities.
Well, I'm going to hope that that is all correct. All right, well, I will entertain a motion on the resolution to approve the budget. Counselor Patton, or
Yeah.
Commissioner Patton, sorry.
Would it be harmful if we just sort of did it impromptu?
It wasn't noticed. It was only noticed as a
Oh, it
public
wasn't
hearing
noticed,
for
yes.
002.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah,
I'll pack that back away.
yeah, I'm just going to hope that we're covered. And if not, I'm sure Emily will correct us and we'll have to do it again. But we'll have to have a special meeting if it's incorrect, because budget law makes us get the budgets adopted by the end of the month, and here we are in the last meeting of the month, so. We'll ask her when she gets here later.
I do know that Maya had put out all of the ads and had all of the dates in the ad that went to the public, the newspapers, publishers that we needed to get. So if
Okay.
that would have satisfied our public notice requirement
Okay.
for public hearings.
Okay. Well,
But if,
just
yeah,
a CYA, I'm
yep.
I'm gonna ask her when she gets here, but
Totally
just wanted to
understandable.
make sure. But all that to say, we have a resolution before us, so there's no other questions for staff. I'll entertain a motion. No one wants to approve the other?
Counselor, I would like to make a motion to adopt URR 25-003, a resolution of the Canby Urban Renewal Agency adopting the annual budget, making appropriations, and imposing and categorizing taxes for the fiscal year 2026.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion has been made by Commissioner Stearns, seconded by Vice Chair Hodson to adopt URR 25003, a resolution adopting the Urban Renewal Agency annual budget, making appropriations and imposing and categorizing taxes for fiscal year 2026. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? Passes 6-0.
Comment real quick, if you don't mind.
Yes, sure.
Jamie brought to my attention that last year there was no public comment either, or public hearing. So
On the
I think
urban renewal.
We should be good on the urban renewal.
Okay.
I would still double check, but. if
I'll
you
double
looks like
check.
we're following what we did last
There may be different rules for URA versus city. That could be, okay, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, and in I was doing the script, I was following the same format that we had last year.
Okay. Yeah, I just had it in my brain. It's like, oh, city budget has to have hearings. And I'm like, wait, where, just, in this climate, I try to err on the side of caution.
Worst case scenario, we'll all have to meet again tomorrow.
Right, worst case, yeah. I think we'll be okay, though. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, there is a motion in the script that I think is actually from last year, so I'm going to X that out because it's not on the agenda.
Yeah, on the script, it's showing.
Yeah, any other business that needs to be brought to us? Chief, do you have anything?
No other business that I know of.
Okay. Seeing that we're at the end of the agenda, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Vice Chair Hudson, seconded by Commissioner Davis to adjourn. No debate. All those in favor? Aye. Good night, Canby. We'll be back in a little bit for a work session.
Canby. Welcome to City Council work session this evening. We're having a discussion this evening regarding the history of the Redwood Professional Village 2 on Southeast 3rd Court. Good evening, Mr. Hardy. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Thank you. Good evening,
Floor is
Mayor.
yours to race.
I don't have a lot of time here. I would like to make sure that Dr. Perman gets a chance to speak tonight, since we only have about half an hour. Don Hardy, Planning Director. I'm here with Spencer Pollock, Public Works Supervisor, and I'm here to give an overview of the land use permitting processes that previously happened on the Redwood Professional Village development, and specifically looking at Southeast 3rd Court. Again, I'd like to make sure Dr. Perman has a chance to speak about his request tonight, but I will be going over a high-level review of the land use permitting history. Staff has not evaluated 3rd Court use demand by logging trail users, so I want to make that clear in this discussion. With that, Teresa, can we pull up the PowerPoint? I was intending, I thought we had an hour initially. I was mistaken. So I was going to do the PowerPoint first and then go into the presentation. Now I'm going to combine them together. We can do this. So these are some slides that give orientation to, this is working here. Let's try this again. There we go. I think it was on. So just an entry shot of the Southeast 3rd Court, Redwood Street. And I'm going to go back a slide. This is the subdivision plat. It's kind of hard to see here, but there's 9 lots in the subdivision plat. I'm going to walk through this. This goes back to 2004. This property, along with some other property, was rezoned from light industrial to commercial manufacturing. There were some stipulations placed on the property by the city council at that time that a development agreement be approved for the property to restrict property use to business and professional offices. And that development agreement is still standing. It's still active. The property was subsequently divided in 2005 into 9 lots with a private street, Southeast 3rd Court, which you're seeing there in front of you. And then the subdivision condition, excuse me, had a development and maintenance agreement with it that established that the owners association for the maintenance of all common areas, parks, infrastructure, and open space, the developer or owners association was responsible for maintaining all wall and fences, pedestrian access, private access, drive, stormwater infiltration system, and lighting in all commonly owned areas. I'm going to slide through here. This is the entry point to Southeast 3rd Court. And this is the cul-de-sac as it goes back into the Southeast 3rd Court. And then there's some views from the back end of this. You can see at the end of the bulb over to the left, there is a connectional point to the logging trail path. This is from the back end, that same logging trail path looking into the cul-de-sac. 3 of the 9 lots have been developed. A 4th lot is in process of being permitted right now, and it's actually to the left of the fire hydrant. It's another professional office in process now going through land use development review. This is a shot from the logging trail, and as you look over to the right-hand side of the slide, we're going to start to go over to where there's a pedestrian path that goes around the back side of the development that is for pedestrians, which is part of the subdivision application approval process. That's the path from Redwood Street leading into, going around the back side, and you can see Redwood Professional Building, the dental office is to the right. And this is the same path that as it connects all the way back to the logging trail, that pedestrian path that kind of goes around the edge of the subdivision. This is a slide that we put together, and again, it's conceptual, but it shows what parking might be available if you were to have full development of the build out of the cul-de-sac with 20-foot driveways, which is pretty common because the Redwood Professional Village dental facility has a 24-foot driveway. The two other developments have 20-foot driveways, and the proposed development that's now in process has a 22-foot driveway. So if you do the calculation of the radius around the cul-de-sac, you have about 6 to 7 spaces roughly with a 20-foot driveway in that situation. So I'm going to go back a few slides here. Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Thanks, Don. What is the width of the street?
The width of the street, and I was just going to get to that. So the next thing on this is, this gets into, it's a private street, and traditionally what we are seeing in acquisition for streets is, I'm using the county as an example, that streets are either built to city standards or they're paid to be built to city standards. We're either paid to have them built so we can upgrade them, or they're actually upgraded to city standards before we would take them on. The current width is 26 feet, and the city standard would be 34 feet. The current width of the easement is 30 feet. The width that would need to be in right-of-way would be 40 feet. So it's 26 feet wide, 30-foot easement now would need to be 34 feet with a 40-foot wide right-of-way. Also, there's a pavement differential. We didn't pothole this, it's private property, but we believe the design out there was 1.5 inches of pavement on 8 inches of base rock. The city standard is 4 inches of pavement with 12 inches of base rock. So those are things to consider in the equation here. And there's also a private stormwater system versus a public stormwater system that is in place here. That system we would have to investigate to see how that's operating, et cetera, if the city were to take this on. So these are, I put a lot of detail in the staff report. There's a number of questions that I also put in there that could be questions the council may ask. I don't want to belabor necessarily the staff report because I'd really like to have Dr. Perman have a chance to speak about what this is. Just globally, just as you are aware, Councilor Davis, Parks and Recreation Advisory Group met last night, and we are looking at some form of access to the logging trail. Last night, it was looked at by the advisory group as a medium priority. There's high, medium, and low over a 20-year horizon somewhere in the city. Not to say this is the location, but somewhere in the city to provide access. I'd like Dr. Perman to speak to the road, and also if there's a potential that he would be interested in the city purchasing a lot there and what that would look like. We have none of that detail. That would be something that he could speak to. But I think the critical issue here is looking at what this would have to be if it were a public street, if we were to continue with that thematic element of having to have it be brought up to city standards for it to be acquired. Because that is a considerable item for the city to take on to, just as a private road. So those are the circumstances, and just the one thing about cost issues, just again, not to dive into details, and the council has not seen this yet, but there'll be a 20-year Parks and Recreation Advisory Board recommended list of projects for parks, and that would have to be approved by council. This likely would not be 100% eligible for Park SDC. It'd be probably 30 to 40% range because there's already access to this area by the pedestrian path itself. So essentially, it would be a discount of that. And so it'd have to be a general fund obligation. So that's another consideration.
Yes, Councilor Patton.
So I just want to make sure that I have an understanding of this. This is from my time on the Planning Commission. So the road is not wide enough, and that is why there are mountable curbs, is because for this to have been developed, there must have been a sign off by the fire district that mountable curbs had to be put on those streets so that if a fire truck had to get down there, because I know in other areas where there's been variances for things like that, the city has had to require mountable curbs. Is that a safe assumption?
I believe it is, and this was 20 years ago as well.
Okay.
So I believe that is correct.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
So the other thing that brings me pause to this is that if the street is at the width that it's at, that means the sidewalks are closer to the street than if the street was to be widened, the sidewalks would be too close, the streetlights would all be too close, and all the building frontages would be too close, because all of that stuff would have to then get some sort of variance in order to be closer to the street if it was widened, correct?
That, they would not necessarily a variance, but the two of the buildings would become non-conforming to setbacks.
Okay.
They would not be the Redwood Professional Building, they'd be on the other side. The two other professional offices on the other side of the road would end up being less than the setback to the front yard. So that is correct. They would become non-conforming to our code.
Okay, the other thing is that on this diagram, on this plat, it shows a thing, I'm under the impression that there is a utility easement that goes through this property and connects to the logging road. Is that correct?
There is a public access and utility, yes, it is for both. I believe it's storm drainage and
I think the one he might be referring to could be for a power.
power.
Power, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm only assuming that because it's going from a transformer to a transformer. There might be other utilities in there as well.
Okay. And the cul-de-sac bulb, I'm also assuming is not of a standard cul-de-sac bulb size, correct?
It is for a private road.
For a
but not
private road,
for not for a public road, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so one of the concerns that I have had since these conversations have started is if there are mountable curbs in there for easement or for use of emergency vehicles, if there are cars parked in that cul-de-sac bulb, now it is becoming an issue for emergency vehicles should something happen at the end of that street and they need to maneuver through this.
We would want Canby Fire to weigh in on the adequacy of the circulation.
Okay.
And that would, to the parking question you're asking.
Okay. One last thing, I just want to make sure that I put this on record, and I meant to do this before we started. I am just declaring the fact that since I moved to Canby 20 years ago, Dr. Perman was my dentist, and I, up until his recent retirement, I am now with the people that took his operation over. Also Trent Warren, Dr. Trent Warren, who has a building in this development. He is also my doctor, so I'm declaring that conflict, but I am letting people know that I am approaching this in a completely unbiased manner as far as this work session. And there will be no votes or anything like that tonight, so I'm choosing to participate in the work session, even with those conflicts. And that's all I had.
If you have other questions, that's great. Otherwise, I'd like to give a chance for Dr. Perman to get up and speak to his request.
You have a question, Counselor Stearns?
I guess just to clarify what we're talking about is the ask being, is that the city buy the road and maybe a lot for parking, or is that what the ask is?
That is my understanding, but again, we were not privy to like that information, so that's why I would like.
Okay, no, I'm trying to
Yeah.
put my mind around what the actual ask is. And then the other question I have, and just a hypothetical question, but my understanding is that the logging trail is not a road, it's a park.
Correct.
And as a park, it's not required, I assume, to be the same standard as a street in Canby, correct?
That is correct on the trail part of it. I think that the issue is that the need for this based on public use is probably the question that really this comes down to.
My question is if the new parking lot was a park instead of a street, would that change the requirements at all as far as?
But it is a street.
Well, but the logging trail is a street, but it's a park, that's a street.
No, Southeast Third Court is the street.
But I know what I'm saying, but if that were changed to I'm just saying, the way we label things sometimes changes the way they're regulated, right?
I don't think we have any other circumstance in the city, and I think the broader
asking
question is acquisition of streets in the city, and the city's position has been that they need to be brought up or paid to be brought up, dealing with Clackamas County as an example of that situation.
Okay, well, we can go that later, but my idea is that that little thing that looks like a road is a park, and that little thing that looks like a road is a street, but what's the difference?
It's an emergency access.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
And it's the design. I mean, the city would end up taking on all the liability for this based on the fact of how it was designed as well.
No,
So
I
it's-
understand that. I just throwing it out,
Yeah.
that we have things that look like streets that are called parks and things, that, so I just point that out, Spencer.
If I can too, the design for a walking path, although it does have asphalt over it, is not meant for vehicle traffic. That doesn't mean that vehicles can't cross it in an emergency situation or for maintenance purposes, but it's not the walking path itself, even though at one point in time it was the logging road that they hauled logs on. That current asphalt that is on there is a very thin layer that was just meant to smooth out for pedestrians and bicyclists. If we started allowing vehicle access on there on a regular basis, so it's kind of apples to oranges as a comparison.
Okay, fair enough.
Acting city manager, Chief Tro, how many police cars go on the logging trail on a monthly or?
Probably on a daily basis, somebody goes through and patrols that from each side.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Fire has used it.
Great. Any other questions for staff? Again, the whole idea, I think, the question at hand was getting a history on kind of the lay of the land on the street and whatnot. So I'll give Dr. Perman an opportunity to speak as well. Thank you both.
Good evening, council, mayor.
Sir?
Thank you for your time. That's the most thing. Thank you all. You guys put out all this time for the community. And I've been there. I've been here 32 years. I know what it's like putting a lot of time out. So I just appreciate all your time and your efforts in this community helping it grow. And I thank you very much. 20 years ago, I looked for property. I grew up in Canby, grew up in Happy Valley, went to high school, Clackamas, and went to OHSU up on the hill and went to dental school. Came in here to buy a practice with Dr. Kraft, who'd been with the Andrews Sister location off of 3rd, Northwest 3rd. Just to give a quick background. Basically, I was renting space downtown in a building looking over Wade Park. There was an empty lot next door at the time. I had exploded in my practice. I had to find a place to build a sizable dental office. Andrews Sisters wouldn't sell the lot to me. And there's nothing else downtown. As we know, parking downtown is really tough, and it's a continued issue for the last 30 years for getting good parking downtown. And to have your own lot with its own parking is virtually impossible downtown. So I started looking elsewhere to build my practice, because that's part of the issues in Canby right now, continues to be the lack of commercial property that you can build a building on and have your own personal parking space for your patients and owners and the people that work for you. That was the biggest issue in Canby. And it's the biggest issue right now with the eye doctor, who can't expand downtown. She's got to move out. So she's looking. So we got to looking at property. I tried to buy property where the emergency center is right now. They said lease only. So I went forward and continued to look. I finally set on this piece of 4 crazy pieces of light industrial property that were worthless and had been zoned that since the 80s. I took the risk to go ahead and move forward. Bought 4 pieces of property, got it rezoned, and tried to get some parking for this town so we can serve others. It was a service district, a service village to serve the public. We had to build a road. City didn't want to build it as a public road, so I built it as a private road. doesn't mean the circumstances are any different. Geo-Pacific, I gave this to you guys. And maybe the gentleman that spoke didn't know about the Geo-Pacific report. There's 3.5 inches of asphalt throughout the whole thing. And most of it is 12 inches of rock. There's a little bit of 10 and one spot of 6.5. So it's virtually a public road status when you talk about a public road in terms of its infrastructure. Now, the big difference is we don't have any 60 to 80,000 pound semi trucks. It's not 99E. It's not Redwood. It's a unique road. It's butted up against the city park. It was the planning department that required that pathway to be built in to connect it to the logging road. Up 4th Street, the pathway from 4th Street to the logging road is used every day by the maintenance trucks. Every day. So don't tell me that this road is incapable of handling traffic for the next 30 years. The weight of traffic on this road is site-specific utility road has been used by everybody. Cars at 4,000 pounds, trucks at 6,000 pounds, delivery trucks at 10,000 pounds. The heaviest thing in there is the truck from the fire station and the garbage truck once a week. That's 30,000 pounds. Geo-Pacific stated in the report that I sent to everybody that it's a very adequate road 19 years later. It's a site-specific road for the traffic. It's not Redwood. It's not 99E. It's unique. And it was the city that required getting it all attached and then building all the walkway around it. I did that. Yeah, that cost me a lot of money. And so I did what the city told me to do. And so this has turned out to be a road that's used by the people that get to the services, all the different divisions of the city, the maintenance trucks, the utility trucks, the fire trucks, the ambulance, the city buses. I got multiple pictures of 2 buses in the cul-de-sac for lunch for an hour. So this road for the last 19 years has had multi-uses along with, I just took a picture, I left my office. There was a car sitting in the parking lot because there was no parking on the south side of town. Go out and find a place to develop a 20 lot or even 15 lot parking lot on the south side of town. 0 locations available. 13th, where the neighborhood is, where the kind mayor said there might be something there when it develops. It didn't happen. They've got 2 lots there on the road that accommodates the people in the neighborhood on 13th. As you work your way back to the city, you're talking about a school which doesn't require and does not want the public parked in their parking lot to access the logging road, the city park. From there is 4th Street. That's where the city workers access the logging road. That's their access every day. They would much rather desire, and I've talked to them, maintenance people, the utility, the firemen, the police, would much rather access the logging road with 3rd Court. So I'm telling you, I'm just saying, this road has been used multi-purpose as a public road for 19 years, ever since it was built. We didn't talk about with all this attachment with the logging road and the pathway, we did not discuss the other uses of this road. And that's why I said, I think it's time to assess its value and sell this as a functional road as it is. It's an adequate road. There's no reason to tear up anything. The width of the road with the curbs designed to accommodate the in and out of traffic. And you're right, when a car is parked in the cul-de-sac, that's why we need public parking on the south side of town. You're developing a walkway from 99 coming up nearly to my village for access to Fred Meyer. And then put a fence along, hopefully, between the railroad tracks and the logging road, so these people quit going across the railroad track to get to Fred Meyer and back, and use my road every day for that.
So, Don, again, thank you guys very much for being here. We're coming up on our city meeting time. I just want to kind of cut to the chase here. So the ask is for the council to
Take
consider.
over the road,
Okay.
assess its value, and if it takes Canby Excavation or meeting with the Geo-Pacific, these two entities, Canby Excavation, built the road, they know different, what would the cost to build that road today be versus, its depreciation, but it's been determined by Geotech to leave it alone. The only thing it's gonna need, maybe in the next 3 to 10 years, is another layer of asphalt like you just did to Redwood, and it's gonna give you another 20 or 30 years. That's who I trust. They're the ones that work with Canby Excavation and Geo-Pacific work together to build your roads. They're the ones that told me that it's a very adequate road as is for the type of site-specific traffic that this road gets.
So again, you're asking council to consider assessing the value,
And purchase the road,
buy it, and then make it a city-owned road.
and then take one of the empty lots that are still available. This one that's not got understructure, we could actually have a bathroom put maybe in there. It's right up against the logging road.
Oh, it'd be great to have a bathroom there. You have people that use logging road that use that. The woods right beyond Redwood Court, there's a park back in there, and they use that as a bathroom. And it would be nice if you put a bathroom up there.
Our office, Dr. Trent's office, are always got people coming in asking for
We don't let
drinks
the
and
strangers in
bathrooms.
anymore.
Councilor Patton, question?
Yeah, so I guess one of the things that I find interesting in your conversation here tonight is
Yeah.
that you alluded that the city refused to let you put in a city street. That you had made the comment that the city did not want a city street in there, so that's why you chose to
No,
put in.
I didn't say that. I said
Okay.
the city did not want to pay for a street.
Well, of course, because
Because it was my development.
I understand that, but normally when a housing development goes in,
Yeah.
or any of these development goes in, the city does not pay for those streets. The developer pays for those streets. So normally, and this
Right.
is from my time on planning commission, normally when a developer chooses to do a private street instead of a public street, it is because they want to capitalize on utilizing more of the land in their development. So,
Right.
because of the odd shape of that piece of property,
Right.
in order to capitalize on being able to build larger buildings in
Right.
there was a conscious decision.
Correct.
Am I? No, there was a conscious decision to go with a private street because it didn't need to be as wide.
Correct.
Correct?
That's right.
So that way the sidewalks were closer, and that way you had more frontage to hit those easements, correct?
Exactly.
So at the time that this development went in, there was a conscious decision to do that.
'Cause that-
Now, moving forward, it is regardless of the base of the street and the pavement and all of those things, the curbs are not to a city standard. The sidewalks are not to a city standard. All of that is not to a city standard. So that, to me, is one of the reasons why, as a counselor, I will be very cautious, not interested in the city taking over this street because of all of those things.
I understand
Now,
that.
I am happy to try and work something out. And you and I have had these conversations before, if the Parks Advisory Board comes to this group and says that it makes sense to purchase land there to put in a parking lot, that is something I would consider as a city councilor. But for me, I do not see a need for the city to take over the street when there are these various deficiencies. Now, put a fence along the logging road so that only fire trucks and utility people can access the logging road and people cannot walk up there? Maybe. Allowing you to put signs around the cul-de-sac bulb that says no parking, and then getting a contract with a tow company, because when I would do the Christmas tree lot here for the Lions Club downtown, I would get a contract with a tow truck company, they would monitor the parking lot, and they would tow vehicles out of there. But at least for me, it is a hard sell for the city to take over this street.
I understand what you're saying, but this is not a normal street.
I know, and
This
that's
is
why
a-
it's got all these
This
variances.
is a site-specific. The traffic's totally different. There's no semi-truck, there's no heavy, consistent traffic. That's my point. And it's not used just by the people that are getting business services. It's used by all the different agencies of the city, and it's used by people that want to park on the south side to get to a park, the logging road. So there's 3 different sectors that are served and have been served for the last 19 years on a road that has been adequate because it is site-specific traffic only that use this road. So it is completely different than 99E.
Well, of
Or
course it's
Redwood.
different than 99E
And
because
Kirkland.
it's not a county road.
All right, so.
That's my point, is that
Okay.
it is site-specific. And the traffic, there is no thorough traffic. So it's completely unique in terms of its attachment to a park, and it's unique for the type of traffic that use the road. And that's when this other traffic came in, we didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about all the different maintenance trucks and different fire trucks or police or ambulance that use Third Court to get, remember, this road decreased, let me finish. This road for first responders is critical to get across to the north side. Because when 99's busy, or we got this long train that's coming through town, it's Third Court that's used to get across the north side in emergencies.
Okay.
To decrease the minutes going over.
All right.
So my point is, it's not
pulling-
just a private road.
Okay, I'm pulling a plug on our work session here because we are overdue. So what is the flavor of the council? Do we, want this as a further agenda item to discuss and ask further questions, or get homework, or come back and discuss what homework we want from staff? Because we got to wrap this up because
I
we have
just
a
want to
meeting.
know if the Geo-Pacific report that he has, do you have that, Don?
Okay, I don't have it, I'll take it.
Okay.
Okay. Counselor Stearns and Counselor Davis.
Since we're out of time, and there's only a half hour that we had to devote to it, there's some things I would like to talk about, but, so I would, my thing is to have another work session to discuss it more when time frees up.
Okay. Is that yours as well?
Yes, I'd
Okay.
like to see an additional work session on this, and if we could get the cost, or if Spencer could give us some projections of what it would cost, what that cost might be to widen it and to bring it to city standards, going forward, and a projected cost, rough, very ballpark, in regards to if we purchased a lot to turn it into a parking lot. Because we're going to need that for Park and Rec anyway, if they're going to put it on impact fees in the future and partial impact fees, so we'll need to know those costs.
Okay. Council
One last
President,
comment?
hang on, sir. Did you want something to add?
I would like to make sure that report gets to Don so that we know what they say the assessment of the road is. It's going to be a hard sell for me. I'm not interested at this point. It's been many years we've talked about this. You're going to have to convince me.
Councilor Patton.
In that, if you're working up costs, I would like to know what the cost would be to put up a fence with a gate and a lock system for emergency vehicles along that property to block off that easement for pedestrians and funnel them all towards the pedestrian path.
Emily, did you have something?
I can take it up with staff after. Thank you.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I'll take it up with staff after. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like we're going to schedule something again. So we'll keep you posted as when that will be. And it sounds like staff's got some homework that we've asked them to do. So stay tuned. Okay?
I just want to give this to the city attorney,
Yeah, that's fine. She'll make sure it gets passed around.
State of New York. Had the same issue, and because it was used by the public over 10 years, it became, a private road became a public road.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Byrne. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Perman.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Spencer. Appreciate it. That concludes our work session this evening. If the flavor of the council, do we need a break, or can we just roll? Okay, do we need to create a break at all, Teresa, for the video, or can we just roll?
Oh, do you need to get?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so I will call to order our regular city council meeting for June 18th. 2025. It is a beefy agenda because it is the end of the fiscal year, and we will be approving a number of pieces to support rolling into the new fiscal year with our city budget and things like that. So if you would please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this great city. I am so very appreciative of all the leaders here, watching at home, and throughout our community. I lift up in prayer, again, a continued war-torn area in the Middle East. I pray that we don't need to send our men and women there and put them in harm's way. Please bring resolution to that area and keep our men and women out of that area if need be. I ask for clarity for this group tonight as we approve our budget and as we get ready to move into a new fiscal year. I ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You realize you're pausing either way, right?
There's no comma there. Look at it.
All right.
comma there.
Next on our agenda this evening is citizen input and community announcements. There's a back table there. It looks like we got a couple people filling out yellow cards. If you fill those out, please bring them to Teresa, our deputy city recorder, and she'll make sure that I get them. This is an opportunity to address the council on non-agenda items. I do have a letter, but that's regarding something later in our agenda, and I'll save that for then. If you are attending in person, please fill out the yellow testimony card, which is being done by a couple of people. If you are wishing to address the council virtually, please contact the city recorder or the deputy city recorder by 4:30 p.m. on the day of our city meetings with your name, the topic, and what you'd like to speak on. Those that are here with yellow cards will be given 3 minutes to address the council, and if it can be handled here tonight, we will do so. If not, I will work with city staff to provide and get answers to the questions involved. I understand, do we have, my understanding is we had somebody that wanted to virtually zoom in?
Yes, I just texted him the link, so I don't know.
Okay. And is, okay, then we'll move on to the yellow cards I have here. First up is Christy Smith, subject is Juneteenth by Canby Pride. Hi, Christy, good evening.
Good evening. So hi, my name is Christy. I use she, her pronouns. Ultimately, I'm here to acknowledge Juneteenth and to call out the glaring absence of official recognition from the city's leadership. This is the second year I've submitted a request for a Juneteenth proclamation from the mayor. All of my requests have been denied or ignored. I know you may not agree with my views, but let me tell you, every time I write an email, show up to a meeting, watch a meeting from home, attend a city-sponsored event like the Civic Engagement Academy, sit on city boards and committees and engage with this community, it is because I care deeply and it's important to me. With that being said, I'd like you to know that when my emails are not responded to, it's upsetting. How else than this 3-minute city council comment section is there for me to have any sort of dialogue with you? I'm aware of current city issues, and perhaps if this wasn't a pattern, I could overlook it, but this has happened several times. This year, despite your recent willingness to recognize other communities through proclamations, you have again remained silent when asked to honor the emancipation of enslaved Black Americans. The hypocrisy is unmistakable. So tonight, I will read the Juneteenth proclamation myself because our community deserves to see this day honored. Whereas Juneteenth, observed annually on June 19th, commemorates the date in 1865 when enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas, were finally informed of their freedom 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation had been issued, And whereas Juneteenth represents a crucial moment in the United States history, symbolizing the delayed but ultimately unstoppable advance of freedom and justice, and serving as a reminder of both the resilience of Black Americans and the unfinished work of racial equity in our nation. And whereas in 2021, Juneteenth was designated a federal holiday, affirming its national significance and encouraging all Americans to reflect on the impact of slavery, celebrate Black freedom and culture, and recommit to dismantling systemic racism in all its forms. And whereas observing Juneteenth creates space for education, dialogue, and solidarity among all residents of Canby, and serves as a call to action to uphold the dignity, safety, and freedom of every member of our community. Now, therefore, the community of Canby, proclaim June 19th, 2025 as Juneteenth Independence Day in Canby, Oregon, and encourage all residents to commemorate this day with reflection, education, and celebration, honoring this historical and ongoing struggle for Black liberation and justice.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
Next card I have is Chris Wright. I think is it Pink Quartz?
Pink Sisters.
Oh, the Pink Sisters.
Sisters.
Sisters, no R.
Good evening, Mayor Hausen, councilors, staff. My name is Chris Wright, 260 Knightsbridge Road. I'm also here representing Canby Disposal this evening. I think you all know me from there. I also have Deb Hart with me, who is the founder of Pink Sisters, which is a nonprofit organization that supports women suffering and experiencing breast cancer. We're here this evening to pitch an idea to you all and kind of copycat what's been done over in Clark County for several years now, but we would like to see if you're interested in allowing us to put pink recycling carts out on the street. If somebody would like to, donate $50 to the Pink Sisters Foundation, we would purchase the pink recycling carts, service it as it was a normal recycling cart, but we donate the $50 that they donated to Deb and her foundation. So I'd also like to allow Deb to introduce herself.
So I'm Deb Hart, and I'm the founder of Pink Sisters, and I have been doing this lovely foundation for the past 15 years. And what we do is really simple. We do retreats for women who've gone through breast cancer, and it's at no cost to them. So we have 3-day retreats, some in the gorge, some at the beach, and we also do day retreats where I coach paddleboarding and kayaking, and we have a cute pink party barge boat donated by Weston Kia, and we take the women out on an excursion, and it's all about fun after what they've been through. The one thing I want to share with all of you is this: none of us are paid. I am the founder, been doing this for 15 years, and none of us get paid. We have no payroll. So every bit of the money, which is very, very unusual for nonprofits, goes right back to the program. And we have 250 women a year coming through and doing our retreats. This year, we have a $72,000 budget, which is not very much when we're renting houses, hiring yoga instructors, sound wave therapists. I can go on and on and on. But I am so excited about this opportunity. And I met Chris at a chamber meeting, and I just said, wow, this would be pretty awesome if you could all help us get to a fundraising reasonable amount of money to continue our efforts. Any questions?
I actually do have one. So the $50 for the can, is it a rental just for the can for a specified time, or is it a permanent basis?
It would be a permanent basis, but they would not own the can. And we're still kind of in the preliminary stages of trying to plan this, but I was mainly here today just to ask if you all would support, having pink carts on the streets if people chose to have that. There would be no ask from the city besides that. We would handle everything else.
You just wanting us to approve a color scheme. I'm good with it.
An additional color to the scheme, yes.
I
would
think
be
it's a
okay with that.
great
And
idea.
when, what is the timeline like for, like,
So if somebody would like to donate the $50 to Pink Sisters, they would keep the card at their house for the entire time they had service with us in Canby. If they moved, that's when we would have to probably take the cart back unless they were moving into another, part of town. And we're trying to, if this goes well with you all, then, we're going to work with Clackamas County and try to expand further out into the county as well, so.
Now, if they wanted to get their blue can back, would they be able to? After purchasing, or after donating for the?
They can get their blue can back, but they would not be able to get their money back.
Yeah. No, no. Sometimes they're just like, all right, I'm done with the pink, let's go.
Yeah, I'm over it.
absolutely.
Yeah, no, okay.
Counselor Patton?
I would be interested in Emily looking into how we could modify the franchise, if there's any need to modify the franchise agreement with Canby Disposal in order to allow something like that to happen. And I didn't have my button on. I'm sorry, Gordon. I would love for Emily, I'd be interested in Emily looking into what sort of adjustments might need to be made to our franchise agreement with Canby Disposal in order to allow such a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
Good question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big question. Yeah, so.
Personally,
I
I'm
think,
good.
again, I think at the end of the day, I don't think there's anything in the contract that specifies color schemes of Canby Disposal's cans and recycling bins, but we'll
Yeah.
double check, but I think,
I'm not sure for Canby. I know that in some other franchises we have, there are specific colors, but I would have to check the franchise as well on that.
Yeah, it's kind of like buying a bougie license plate, right?
One last piece of that. I know they pay a fee to us for that franchise. Is it, and I'd be curious if it's like based on the total amount of money they generate in like fees that they are bringing in? And if that's the case, if there would be a way to separate that $50 fee so that they don't get charged, so they don't have to pay the franchise fee for that. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, because it's just passed through to an organization.
so I see head nods of having our attorney looking great. Yeah,
Thank you, everybody.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me know when.
Some postcards and my business card.
Actually, if you want to hand them to our city recorder, she'll make sure
She'll
that
pass them
they'll
on down. Yeah.
pass them down to us and we'll have them.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Pretty cool idea.
Yeah.
So I noticed that Mr. Perez is on, so Mr. Perez, you want to do you had comment or question for the council this evening?
He's muted. He's
Mr. Perez, you're muted.
Greg, unmute. Hold on. I just
Council President
I just
Hensley's taking
texted him.
care of that.
I just texted him like, you're up, but you're muted.
Do we have some Jeopardy music we can play?
Gordon's overlaying it on the jail mail.
Good.
Sent like something twice asking him to unmute.
Well, in 5 seconds here, we're going to continue with our meeting. Okay.
He said he can't hear over his own.
He can't hear us? Well, I guess he'll have to come at the end of the meeting for a second round while he figures out his
Yeah.
IT
there's
issues.
There's opportunity at the end of the evening for a second opportunity for citizen input. Okay, we're going to move into our consent agenda. Just need a motion to approve that, please.
Mr. Mayor, yes, I have moved to approve the consent agenda that includes the approval of the May 21st, 2025 City Council regular meeting minutes, the approval of reappointments to various committees, commissions, and boards, the approval of full on-premise OLCC license for Andalay Kitchen at 117 Northwest 2nd Avenue, and the limited on-premises license OLCC application for Thai Dish located at 102 North Ivy Street.
Second.
Motion's been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Maldonado to approve the consent agenda that include the approval of the May 21st, 2025 City Council regular meeting minutes, approval of reappointments to the various committees, commissions, and boards, the approval of the full on-premises OLCC license for Andalay Kitchen at 117 Northwest 2nd Avenue, and the limited on-premise OLCC application for Thai Dish located at 108 North Ivy Street. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 6-0. All right, moving into a couple of public hearings this evening. So these are the beginning of the budget approval process for us this evening. So this public hearing, the first public hearing is regarding state revenue sharing funds. So this public hearing is a matter presently before the hearing body and requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. This public hearing was noticed, and those who wish to speak were instructed to contact the city recorder. We did not receive any requests to speak at this time. Those people that are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please indicate your desire to speak by raising your hand in-house or virtually to the city recorder. All right, seeing none. For a longer presentation, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In so doing, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. All questions must be directed through the mayor. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received both for and against shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during staff report. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. There will be a staff report, and that'll be provided by our finance director, Scott Schlag. Questions, if any, by the hearing body or staff. I will then open the public hearing for testimony and then close the public hearing. Questions, if any, by the hearing body, and then discussion by the hearing body. A decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Does anyone have any questions about the proceedings of the hearing? Okay. So, Mr. Schlag, you are up, sir. Tell us about our state revenue sharing funds.
On your staff report, that's part of your packet on page 90, there's a brief discussion that we've authored where the state revenue sharing law under the ORS requires cities to annually pass an ordinance or resolution requesting the state revenue sharing money. Those monies are generally basically what we call the sin taxes, which are the cigarette tax, alcohol tax, 911, anything to that sorts. So we have to mandate a public hearing to be held by the city, both before the budget committee to discuss possible uses and the city council for any purposes of those funds in relations to our entire budget. These certifications for these hearings are basically required, and then I'll have, once those are done, I will be able to file that with the Oregon Department of Administrative Services prior to our July 31st deadline. And that's basically the point of coming and having an opportunity for public to speak and then presenting it for you guys to approve. And then once that happens, I'll fill out all of the surveys with Department of Administrative Services, and then hopefully we receive more than we budgeted for.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers are crossed.
Okay. Great, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Schlag?
Question?
Yes, Counselor
A
Smith.
dumb question, but we have to adopt this resolution, and if we decide not to adopt the resolution, we're basically deciding to not adopt the budget, right? Because this assumes, the budget assumes this money's coming.
Yeah, we're telling the state that we don't want the revenue.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, so it's actually, a no vote on this would be a no vote on the budget as well, by default.
Well, by default, yes. We would have to go back to
We'd
the
have to,
drawing board.
yeah, fill that gap somewhere.
Oh, I just think it's weird that we have to approve something that, like, twice, but I guess that's the law, then we do.
Yeah, that's how they want it done. Any other questions about state revenue? All right. Seeing none, I'll open up the public hearing. We didn't have anybody that was for or against, so I will close it. Any additional questions by the hearing body or discussion? All right. I will gladly take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt Resolution 1435, a resolution certifying and declaring the city's eligibility and election to receive state revenue for the fiscal year 2026.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Maldonado to adopt Resolution Number 1435, a resolution certifying and declaring the city's eligibility and election to receive state revenue for fiscal year 2026. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? That passes 6-0. Next public hearing is regarding the 2025-2026 fiscal budget as recommended by the Budget Committee. Again, another public hearing piece, and Emily, I do need you to read the prompt, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The matter presently before the hearing body requires another public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. This public hearing was noticed, and those who wish to speak were instructed to contact the city recorder. We did not receive any requests at the time. Those people that are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please indicate your desire to speak by raising your hands here or virtually and at this time and giving a card to the city recorder. Okay. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In so doing, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. All questions must be directed through the mayor. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received both for and against shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. Staff report, which will be provided by our finance director, Scott Schlag. We'll ask questions of Mr. Schlag. Afterwards, we will open it up for public testimony. Then we'll close the public hearing. There'll be more questions and more discussion. And a decision will be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date that you will receive. Does anyone have any questions about the procedures of the hearing? Seeing none. Mr. Schlag.
Yes, sir.
The floor is yours again, sir.
Thank you. The resolution before you is a resolution adopting our budget, making appropriations, and imposing and categorizing taxes for the fiscal year of 2026. Budget law requires us to adopt an annual budget by June 30 of each year. Oregon's revised statute also requires the city to hold a public hearing and requires the city to submit tax certifications to the county assessors by July 15th. So we currently have passed a local option levy of 49 cents per 1,000 of assessed property tax value on November 8th of 2016 to fund the swim center operation. And we've also adopted a permanent rate of 3.4886 per 1,000 of assessed property value for the city. And this is all under Oregon constitutional law. And on the 3 dates that are listed, May 15th, 21st, 29th, and 2025, the City of Canby Budget Committee met and deliberated over fiscal year 25-26 proposed budgets. Staff reviewed the proposed budget with the committee and allowed for public comment. And the fiscal year 25-26 proposed budget was approved by a majority of the committee. And in front of you right now is to approve the budget for this upcoming fiscal 26 year and carry forward with operations.
Thank you,
Do I
sir.
have any questions?
Questions for staff? Okay, seeing none. Then I will open up the public hearing for testimony. We have no proponents or opponents, so I will close the public hearing. Any further questions or discussion by the city council? Okay. I guess my discussion item is just as a general piece for the public. So yes, we had, the budget process is lengthy and usually starts pretty much in January, February of the calendar year to begin for our department heads to go through and do that process. And so when it comes to the budget committee, we have 3 meetings. And so thank you to the budget committee members, which is also this city council, in being at those meetings and doing the homework and being prepared, because it was a lot. We did end up through some calculations and some pieces. The budget committee had to make some cuts and asked the department heads to recalculate some of their figures and make some changes to their budget. We did have to make some decisions as a budget committee and city council regarding those. We had, I think we finally ended up with, we ended up needing to do, was it $550,000 in adjustments to the budget to get to our number?
Roughly 650.
650,000. Again, we don't have a printing press. We can't go into the negative, so we have to present a balanced budget. It was not easy conversation, but I commend this group and the budget committee for having the tough conversations that needed to be had. Hopefully, we will see better returns next year, and we won't have to quite have those conversations again. So those are my comments on that. Okay. I will take, if there's no other comment, I will take a motion. Yes, Councilor Patton?
I move to adopt resolution number 1436, a resolution of the City of Canby adopting the annual budget, making appropriations, and imposing and categorizing taxes for the fiscal year 2026.
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilor Patton and seconded by Councilor Maldonado to approve resolution number 1436, a resolution adopting the budget, making appropriations, and imposing and categorizing taxes for the 2026 fiscal year. Any other discussion?
I just want to stress that at least my understanding is that budget numbers will be going tighter rather than better in the future, and that we continue as a council to discuss ways of making sure that we can meet our financial obligations for the long term. And I just hope those discussions will take place throughout the year and maybe not wait until the day, or the month before. So as we to plan and structure funding sources or cuts that may be needed in the future to make sure the city does its goals.
No? Well stated. Thank you, sir. Okay. Motion is on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right. That passes 6-0 on the budget front. Next up is a public hearing regarding setting fees for services and repealing resolution number 1437. It's our master fee schedule. This also calls for a public hearing. So again, the matter presently before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. This public hearing was noticed, and those who wish to speak were instructed to contact the city recorder. We do have one submission that came in via email, which I will read when we get there. Those people that are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents Please indicate your desire to speak by raising your virtual hands at this time or handing a yellow card to our city recorder. Seeing none. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In so doing, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. All questions must be directed through the mayor. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received both for and against shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. There will be a staff report presented to us and provided by our finance director, Scott Schlag. There'll be questions by us, the hearing body. Then I will open the public hearing for testimony. There will be proponents, which I don't think there are any. I have one opponent to the fee sheet, which I will read. So the time for that will be as long as it takes for me to read it. I will close the public hearing. Questions, if any, by the hearing body, and then discussion. A decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Does anyone have any questions about the procedures of the hearing? All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
My question is, can we put something in writing that the mayor must read that script with a similar amount of panache as the last one? I find it quite, it breaks up the monotony of things.
I was going to, but I refrained a little bit because I thought the second one got a little loose.
I was
I'm just
thinking
saying.
more infomercial.
So
I'm just saying.
I was slipping into my radio voice back in college, so, yes. So, since there are no other comments, we will turn it over to Mr. Schlag.
So the master fee schedule, each city department has given finance department any updates that they wish to be reflected. So staff has proposed those following changes that would be effective July 1st of 2025. So the attached resolution 1409 will have to be repealed. And as you can see in Exhibit A that we've provided, it summarizes the proposed fee changes. And then Exhibit B shows a comparison of current fees versus the proposed fees. And then Exhibit C reflects the new schedule that are noted if changes are all adopted. There was a work session, I believe, in regards to this last week. And so I believe also the questions that were asked of department heads have all been responded to. If you have additional ones, then the department heads are being asked to be here to be able to answer any of the additional questions outside of what you'd already had been asked. Other than that, this is just going forward for fee approvals to carry forward as of July 1st of 2025.
So just for the viewing audience and for the record, based on our work session that we had last week regarding this topic, I know that your team was going through doing any major changes or adjustments that were made.
They were, yeah, they were being directed by the department heads such as planning, building, if they were going to raise their rates, that they would direct us for just the document itself to be updated. Okay. So that way, as if that gets approved as of July 1st, we'd be able to implement those changes.
And if we have changes, now is the time, tonight is the time to do that.
Yes.
Okay, great. Other questions for Mr. Schlag?
So these fees, can these fees be adjusted during the year, or is this the hearing that locks us until next June or July?
I don't know if it locks us in. I believe that if the council wants to address the fee schedule or a specific fee, then it can do that.
We were told before we could, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just verifying that, because I know there are some fees that are still being discussed about being adjusted right now. I just want to make sure that a vote today doesn't stop us from being able to do that.
It would be my understanding that setting the fees as is going forward for July 2025, and then if the council would like to change those, then it would probably be similar to where you would repeal a portion of that and then make a resolution to have a new rate. in that master fee schedule.
Okay, so as long as that's doable.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, then I'll open up the public hearing for testimony. There are no proponents, but there is an opponent, Zoe Myers, regarding library fines. And it says, to the Canby City Council, I have heard that there is some discussion around increasing library fines, and I wanted to provide an opinion from someone who has lived in many small communities and followed the library policies and politics within these communities. There is growing evidence that the library fines are not effective revenue generators for small community libraries. In fact, many libraries have cited that fines amount to as little as 1% of their total budget. Given this, I understand the impulse to raise library fines to provide more money for the library, but I caution policymakers to consider the true costs associated with library late fees against the purpose a library serves within the community. Across the country, library science has begun shifting away from library late fees altogether, with interesting and highly relevant results. First, many small community libraries like Canby's have found that there is a cost to the library to collect late fees, accumulating from staff time, administrative resources, and a tendency for books to not be returned at all, rather than pay the late fees. These costs have often been shown to be equal or higher than the revenue brought in from the late fees. Raising the late fees risks only compounding the problem. Research shows that patrons are likely to return late books to avoid facing the librarian and paying the late fees. These lost, quote-unquote, books need to be replaced, again, at a higher cost than the late fee would cover. Libraries that have eliminated late fees altogether report significantly fewer, again, quote-unquote, lost books, and ultimately end up reducing costs. Second, consider the purpose of a library. Libraries provide an essential service to their community, providing knowledge and access to resources for every member of the community, no matter their socioeconomic status. Late fees have been shown to be barriers to library use for those members of the community most in need of the library. Many lower-income families hesitate to check out books, worrying they will incur late fees. Immigrants within the community also may be resistant to checking out library books, fearing long-term legal consequences associated with the late fees, whether real or imagined. This is especially important in a farming community like Canby. This kind of barrier may teach responsibility, but it also reduces library use and access. Removal of the library fees has been shown to increase general goodwill and positive association with libraries within a community. Patrons may be more likely to join the Friends of the Library, contribute more money in the long run when late fees are eliminated. Ultimately, many libraries across the country have eliminated late fees altogether, and none have reversed that policy in the 15-plus years that this trend has been growing. Libraries that have eliminated late fees have time and time again shown that the benefits of late fees do not outweigh the intrinsic and extrinsic costs. I have lived in several communities that have eliminated late fees, myself, including conservative towns as small as 5,000 people. I can say without a doubt that these policies were in the betterment of the libraries and the communities they serve. I urge you to consider all the facts and data when considering a raise in library fines. As such, I have attached a summary article that links to much of the research that I mentioned here for you to read through. As the city council members, I know each of you loves Canby in this community, and I thank you for taking the time to fully research what is best for this library and its patrons before making a decision. Thank you, Zoe Myers, a concerned Canby citizen and frequent library patron. And so I think that email came to all of us along with the research packet as well. So those are all the comments I have from the opponent side as well. Seeing nothing else, I will close the public hearing. Any further questions by the hearing body? Mr. Stearns, Councilor Stearns.
So my question is, and I talked a little bit with Marissa about this earlier, is about raised the point in the letter, does the collection of library fees cost more than the fees received in Canby? That's the question. See, the allegation is that the collection of the fees costs, the administration of the collection of the fees costs more than the fees to be collected. I'm not sure if that's correct or not, correct statement.
I mean, I would say, yeah, probably it does, particularly because we have to have the reference desk staff with 2 people at all times, and most of what we collect at that desk is fines and fees. And I want to be clear, I am not asking us to remove the fees. I just want to be clear about that. I know there's been some talk about going back from the 2023 decrease of fines from 25 cents to 10 cents going back up. So I think that's what that was responding to. But yeah, I mean, I've already said this a few times, but I have a really overworked, burned out staff. We don't have enough time to do things. Even going down from the 25 cents to the 10 cents has kind of opened up some staff time to get other things done. So it's been really helpful. And I think there's a lot of information going around about fine-free as well. It's something that the library district is talking about in a new tax district, not the current one, because there are a lot of smaller libraries like Canby's that do rely on that fine revenue. The problem is we've got other libraries even in our system who are quietly going fine-free and waiving fines. And so it is making us look questionable to our community members. That's how I'll say it.
Well, my question is if it costs more to collect the fines than you're receiving, then obviously it makes no sense to have the fines in there at all. It's a budget item. I mean, the allegation is if we, the more we increase the fees, the less money you get, then that's a kind of doesn't make sense to me. But if the fines are a revenue generator rather than a revenue consumer, then that's a different story. I'm just talking without regard to policy. I might talk about that later, but just the math of it. I want to make sure that we're not having a funding source that costs more than the funds received.
We do a lot of different stuff on the desk. We also do page duties up there, like I've said. So I couldn't tell you for sure whether that's the case, but it probably is.
Okay, so your belief is that the fines generate less money than the cost of administrating the fines? That just to make sure we're clear.
I would guess so, yes.
Okay, so my question is why do we have a fine if it costs more to collect than to administer it? I mean, that's the question is, I mean, we'll always give somebody something to do, but it sounds like you have enough to do as it is without.
We sure do. Thanks for saying that. We have a lot to do. I know you guys do too.
Okay, that was my question. I think, but I'm just concerned that we have a revenue program that may or may be a negative revenue program.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions for staff? Okay. I guess discussion about the fee sheet, any fees that are of interest of discussion, or we're all content with the fees that are laid out by the different departments? Yes, Councilor Patton.
One of the questions that I had and we got some feedback on was about the transient room tax. And it sounds like there's been some turnover at the county event center and that has not been collected in a little while. So I would like to make sure that stays at top of mind and if they've had some change in staff, trust me, I completely sympathize with that, but just make sure we don't lose sight of that. And then I did also find it interesting that there was a comment that someone can go in and do like a search of like part-time rentals in Canby as far as like Airbnbs and Verbos and stuff, but there's some more digging and some more research that needs to happen as far as what those addresses are and confirming that information. I would like to see it also remain on the bubble that, finding either code enforcement or finding some staff time to create, to start to track those down and start to actually capture that revenue. I have a feeling that there are a lot more of them in the city than we realize, and that we are foregoing a fair amount of revenue through that source. So Obviously, it will take some time, but I would also like to see that stay be something that we are working towards cleaning that up.
Thank you, sir. Counselor Stearns?
Thought a lot about this, and one of my big concerns is with things like the library fee and the bus fees and some of those other fees. And like I say, if the fine collection costs more than the fine is being received, then that's a different issue. But the idea that we may be in a situation where people say we want a free library, or people say we want free transit, but they're not free. The transit's not free and the library's not free. People have to pay for it. But we may be in a situation that happens every once in a while when I think government likes to get too involved in things where the people using the service are not the same people that are paying the service. And when that happens, you get a lot of price distortion that happens. A big example is healthcare, where the people who are paying for it are usually not the people that are getting the service, not directly, and education as well. We see massive, massive inflations because the people who are using the product are not the ones directly paying for the product. And so I think a discussion needs to be happening on who pays for these services. Right now, the buses, I'd like to see the bus fee increased. I know that they mentioned that they'd like to give it for free, but the idea is when you have the users of a service not be the ones responsible for paying for the service, then the people that use the service don't appreciate it as much, and the people paying for it get resentful for doing that. I don't know if do you as employees pay the transit tax? I mean, does the city pay the transit tax for the employees, or is the city exempt from the transit tax? I don't know, I just question.
I would have to research that.
I mean, if you get, $10 of salary, do they put 6 cents into the transit coffer? The city?
My recollection from my W-2, I saw the state transit tax coming out.
But the local transit tax?
The city pays.
Okay, so there's a line item on the budget for, I don't know if that's classified as benefits or salary on the budget, but there's a cost to it. So there's a cost that the employees of Canby are paying for that service, and they're not the same ones using the service. And so I think we'll always have these budget problems when it comes to having a service that the people using it don't have to directly pay for, but somebody else is paying for the service that they're using. So I think, and this is just, this is my opinion, but hey, they elected me so I can say my opinion, is that we need to have a serious discussion on who pays for the fees that only some people of the city use and not everybody uses. And I think we need to have a discussion on that, because right now we're having a situation where we're saying, for the library, we don't want to raise the fees, we don't want to eliminate the fees, but since we're not raising the fees, we're basically having a decreasing revenue source. The same thing with the buses. We don't want to raise the fees to help cover costs. We're actually each year, in essence, voting to lower the revenue stream because the value of currency goes down. And I think that particular policy isn't sustainable in the future and creates big cost and price distortions. And I maybe do a work session later to go into the economics of that, but that's what essentially happens when you have users and payers not being the same people. So that's kind of my objection to a lot of these fees, is that we're kind of stuck between no fee or raise the fee, but let's not do either and keep it. And we're not deciding what we want to do. Is this a public benefit for everybody, or is it just something that we charge the people who use it to do? And we're kind of stuck in the middle.
So just to make sure I'm hearing what you're asking or commenting, so in terms of like the transit aspect, so are you looking at are you wanting to have the discussion about increasing what the riders pay? or are you looking at the percentage that the businesses contribute?
Well, I think
Both?
a decision needs to be made. How do we pay for this transit? And I think it's probably been $1 for a long time, right? Probably for 20 years, right?
It was free for much of its life.
So when did the dollar fee come in?
It came in 2011 when the economic downturn happens, and they cut most of the services.
Oh, that's when I moved to Canby, so that's why I think it's there forever. I know using the TriMet's not free, and the other, and who pays for it, and who uses it, and why are they not at least a significant overlap of those two populations? And so I would like to have a discussion on why do we charge a fee, and if it's to raise money, why are we not increasing the fee? Because we're not raising money. The money is it's been 15 years without a raise. We've basically eroded the value of that fare base, and these are kind of accounting and financial questions, and maybe it's a little boring, but things that actually make a difference. And I think addressing those things helps prevent these fiscal cliffs or things that we keep being warned about, is by having discussion of who pays and who uses and how do we do that. Right now, the burden is on the employees. People say it's the businesses, but the reality is every business that budgets takes it out of what they would pay for the employees. That's just the way responsible businesses, budget for costs of their employees. And so I just want to have a discussion and saying, the roads are free, we don't toll the roads. Sometimes back east, they toll the roads, and there's some discussions on that. So we've decided that everybody uses the roads for free. Is that what we want to decide for library and transit? If we do make the decision, make the budgeting cuts or revenue increases necessary to do that, but I just don't like the philosophy of having it be sort of stuck in the middle where we're not sure who's really we want to pay for the services.
Well, so I guess, are you posing that question now since we're talking about?
Well, I'm just saying that's my disappointment with the fee structure, is that we don't have a fee structure that seems to at least increase based on, CPI.
Okay.
So I guess that's my opposition to the current fee structure. And I could go through every single fee, but I'd just pick some big examples on that. Also the vendors for the 4th of July and other kinds of things. And I know they're saying comparing to what other people do, but this shouldn't be compared to what other people do. It should be compared to actual costs and how much revenue we can get from it, not looking over a shoulder and say, well, they do it different or that do it different. It's not I don't think it's a herd mentality question. I just think there's a big lack of foresight when it comes to setting the fees.
Okay. So a deeper dive is what you're suggesting that the council take?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we discuss the real value of the fees rather than because of the decreasing value of currency that everybody knows about. If you do any kind of financial plans, you always have to factor in CPI, but it seems like in the city, they don't. And I think that's a mistake.
Okay. Again, we don't make anything, we don't sell anything, we provide services. And those services cost, for sure. So, okay. Any other discussion on this topic? Yes, Councilor Patton.
Yeah, so to counter the vibe I'm getting from Councilor Stearns, one of the ways I look at this is, I don't have a child. I never am going to have a child. At least I don't think I have a child. I think I've been very well behaved over my lifetime. And so I pay school taxes. Now, the reason I pay school taxes is because I don't want a bunch of dumb kids running around running my life when I am old and infirm, right? Like that is the service. I pay for a service so kids are educated so that I don't have them abuse me when I'm old and infirm.
Well, and we want them working to pay our Social Security.
Correct, right? The other thing is the fire district. I pay fire district taxes. Now, my neighbors have had the ambulance come to their house multiple times. I have never had the ambulance or the fire truck come to my house. But I'm happy to pay those taxes because when my house is on fire or the ambulance needs to come to my house, I don't want Jim's predecessor out there with a credit card machine saying, we're ready to hook up the hose, but we got to charge you for this, right? So that's the way I look at like buses and libraries and all that stuff, you know, and I'm gonna kind of get on my high horse, you know, philosophically here. I think one of the things that I'm seeing in society these days is this shift of we need to make sure that we are taking care of the people around us. And in doing that, there's a fee involved. Not only a financial fee, but a spiritual and a social and a moral fee. So, you know, that's sort of, so when these conversations come about, should people be paying for the bus? Should people not be paying for the bus or the library fees or all these things? It's a very slippery slope. And sure, you could charge more, but then, you know, is it going to encourage people to use the bus more? Probably not. I would love to see people utilize our bus system more. But the other caveat is I would love to see them use it more and they probably would if it was more efficient and more useful. The scenario I had a few months ago was story of my life. My vehicle died up in Washington and I needed to get up there to deal with it. So I took the train from Oregon City to Olympia. Well, I could not drive there because I was driving this vehicle back. So I took public transit all the way from my house on North Birch Street to the Oregon City Amtrak station. It was a 35, 40-minute walk to the transit center here because it did not take the Canby Loop. And then the bus to the transit center in Oregon City, and then walk from there all the way to the train station. And it took a long time. Now, it only cost me $1, so should I be complaining for that? And I got my steps in, which is great for my health. But, you know, it's one of these things where if you charge more, it's used more, it is just a slippery slope. I mean, if you want to have this conversation, I'm happy to do it, but I'm going to push back on increasing all those fees for people.
And one of my points is that we have decided to charge for those services. And we have decided that they're not free services. But then at the same time, we're deciding not to have the fee charge compensate for the increase of costs. I mean, I've lived in Europe where I rent public transportation everywhere and ain't free there either, you know, and, you know, you have to get the bus passes and all that other stuff because there is a cost. It's not, you can't, there's no bus ferry out there that goes and gives buses that way for free and pays for their maintenance and upkeep. There is a cost. The question isn't, does somebody need to pay? The question is, who pays? And that's the question I think we need to, as a council, decide who pays and how do we split that. So that's one of the things I just see a lack of conversation on that. We use these default settings. We have things like $5 street maintenance fees that date back to, where no one's even thinking about, wait, is this sustainable for the future? And then, like I say, all my clients that are businesses, I say, you have to increase your fees every year based on at least inflation, or you're going to end up waking up one day and be, what happened to all my money? And it's much better to do it gradually every year than it is to come to a cliff where all of a sudden we have to say, we're forced to, by circumstances that we cannot control, to raise the fee to a really high fee that makes everybody really, really uncomfortable, or we're forced by circumstances to say, sorry, we were cutting a bus because we didn't, well, we could have if we planned ahead of time, made very, not completely painless, but very much less painful decisions to keep the thing financially in operation. And so I'm not saying that we do need to charge a library fee. In fact, there's evidence or opinions out there that may be not financially beneficial, but the idea is if we're going to have these fees and things going, we need to have them reflect the realities of, currency and inflation and those kind of costs going up. And if we forget to do that, we will come up to the place where like, what happened? Why did we all of a sudden have to cut everybody? You know, like just talking about the school district, they had to I think she said 80 people that they said they had to cut last year. And I have a feeling that with a little bit more foresight and planning, some of that could have been avoided. So, sorry, policy, but still, it's just, I think a discussion needs to happen.
Gotcha. Totally hear it. Got it written down. Okay. Any other discussion items on this? Any other, we're content with what came from staff and the fees here, and we're good? Okay. Then if that's the case, then I will take a motion. Yes, Councilor Waterman.
I move to approve Resolution 1437, a resolution setting fees for services, repealing Resolution number 1409, master fee schedule.
Great.
Second?
Thank you. Motion has been made by Councilor Waterman and second by Councilor Haddon to adopt resolution number 1437, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Canby, Oregon, setting fees for services and repealing resolution 1409. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? All right, the fee sheet passes 4-2. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Did we go over the consent agenda?
We did. Yeah, do you want to know how that vote went? That vote went 6-0.
I moved and Maldonado seconded.
Great. So that concludes the public hearing piece. Mr. Finance Director, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you sitting there because there might be more for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. You look like the student that just got scolded and is sitting in the corner. That's why I had to ask.
I just know it's coming.
All right. Well, then we're going to move into ordinances and resolutions right now. First one is to consider ordinance number 1648, an ordinance authorizing the acting city administrator to expend payment to city county insurance services, CIS, in an amount not to exceed $650,000 for liability insurance coverage for fiscal year 2025-2026 and declaring it an emergency in its first reading. Acting city manager.
Sure. So City County Insurances, as you know, provides the city with liability insurance cover for the fiscal year. We've used them for several years. This protects the city by covering our properties, liabilities, and activities if there's an accident or a claim.
And how much of an increase is this from last year?
Taking a stab without seeing in front of me, it's probably about 100 plus. There is a couple of outstanding things that have not been finalized, which is, this is why the recommendation came from CIS of this amount.
So the city.
This city, it still has a few outstanding liability issues that have not been finalized. And so this is the best guess that they said our liability would be at for this upcoming year, which is why there's an increase from what we had last year.
And this covers everything from workplace injury to police cars crashing into trees, dogs needing surgery, those kinds of things.
I am not the insurance coverage expert, but I would probably say that is fairly accurate.
Okay, thank you. A necessary evil that we have to have as a city. All right, any questions for Mr. Schlag?
Got a question.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know, you're not an insurance expert, but we're talking about a $100,000 increase in our liability insurance. I assume that the insurance is given to us based by a rating that we have with the insurance company based on claims history. Is that kind of what's?
I mean, I would assume that's probably fairly accurate.
Because that's a 20% increase. And you're saying that maybe because the city has accrued more potential liabilities or claims against it? Is it, so the insurance rate is based on how many claims you have outstanding?
That's my understanding, that's the way insurance generally works. If you wanted specific questions asked and answered, we can, as a city, speak with our carrier, and they would be able to specifically answer those types of questions. If it was based on that, then they would give us that. But like I said, I am not the expert in why the rates go up, but generally that is why insurance rates do go up. If you've had multiple claims.
I would be interested, maybe either in a work session or something, to have that explanation. Insurance is a big cost, and obviously, I really like the fact that the fire department has reduced all the ratings for the city based on things they do. So I know there are things that may be able to be done to reduce the insurance. And it'd be nice to know, I don't know anything about insuring public bodies, but if there's something that can be done to, affect our insurance rating, I would love to, as a council, to explore that. $100,000 isn't what it used to be, but, still, it's something still. So that's
Duly noted. Great.
and why is it an emergency? Just as a curiosity.
Well, generally speaking, Counselor Stearns, whenever there's an emergency clause on an ordinance of any kind, we usually let Council President Hensley ask that question. So, yeah. So
I will defer to Council.
Thank you for deferring to Council
I usually do
President.
ask it, but this has always got an emergency, and it's always the answer is because the policy is about to lapse. So we have to have the new one in place.
That is
So,
correct.
But is there a way for us in the future to get the cost before it lapses? Before it's about to lapse? Or is it something like they give the bill and say it's due next week or something?
In my experience so far, there's a couple of things that kind of come in like later in the process. Our CIS bill like this, and then the other one is oftentimes, at least it has been historically, I don't know about this year, but health insurance costs for the city employees. Those usually come in by the time, they shoot their first number across the bow somewhere, anywhere from, 17 to 22% increase. And then we settled down somewhere in the, in the 10 to 12 range, but.
So it's not a set fee, it's, you might have to pay this fee, or is it like,
The 650,000?
buying a car, used car or something?
Well, it sounds like, as you explained to Scott, was that we're looking at, because we still have some outstanding things that have not been resolved, that they're just saying, on the high end, it's this, it may end up being less.
Correct.
But it just seems like though there's some sort of bill because there's an emergency to pay the amount, but it says not to exceed 650, so is that going to be decided like next week, next month, next?
I don't know.
Next,
If you've ever been in a car accident, you know that insurance companies can sometimes, or if there's property damage, can take time to get those resolved. So I'm sure it's bleed over from 1 year or 2 years into the new year, and that's why they say.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it works way different for this kind of insurance.
Sure.
Usually they don't raise the rates until after the claim has been processed.
Well, the emergency clause, Daniel, we have to do an ordinance, we have to do 2 readings. So already it's going to take 2 weeks before we can get this approved.
Yeah.
But if we don't have the emergency clause, then it's another 30 days before it becomes effective. So that's why the emergency clause. So it's as soon as we pass it next meeting, it's in effect. Otherwise, they got to wait 30 more days, and that runs
Okay,
into
and the bill is due before then, I guess. Okay.
Counselor Patton?
Yes, so if it's possible, if you could dig into some of the factors as to why, specific factors as to why the fee increased and get that to us, that might answer some of the questions that came up tonight. And then if it's possible in the future, if you can write a note to yourself or whatever, that in the future, when this sort of thing comes up, please reach out to CIS, right? CIS?
Correct.
Yes, and say, hey, we would like to create a little synopsis as to why this is happening so that we can send it off to city council.
Yeah, and I had that conversation with Maya. Normally, this would have been the HR and risk director that would have been presenting this.
Yes.
My understanding from Maya is that there are 2 specific liability claims that are still out there, which is why this is higher than the previous years.
Okay.
So I don't think we want to get into what those are.
No. Yeah.
So those are, those 2 liability reasons are why it is up higher.
Okay.
Got it.
And
Thank you.
with that, I move to adopt ordinance number 1648, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to expend payment to city county insurance CIS in the amount, in an amount not to exceed $650,000 for liability insurance coverage for fiscal year 2025, 2026, to a second reading on July 2nd, 2025, and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilor Patton, seconded by Council President Hensley, to approve ordinance number 1648, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to expend payment to city county insurance services, CIS, in the amount not to exceed $650,000 for liability insurance coverage for fiscal year 2025, 2026, and declaring an emergency. Up for second reading. What was the date you said, Jason?
July 2nd, 2026.
Thank you, sir.
2025.
2025, holy crap, 2025.
All right. Any
Time
further
machine over
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes 6-0. Item B is considering ordinance number 1649, an ordinance authorizing the acting city administrator to expend payment to Safe Corporation in the amount not to exceed $134,793.56 for workers' comp coverage for fiscal year 2025, 2026, and also declaring an emergency.
For the same reason.
Acting City Administrator Tro?
Yes, so Safe Corporation provides the city with workman's comp coverage. It protects the city of covering our employees and volunteers in the event that they get hurt at work.
Our usual boilerplate renewal.
Yes.
Any questions for staff on this one? Great, if not, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt, or we approve ordinance number 1649, an ordinance authorizing the acting city administrator to expend payment to Safe Corporation in the amount not to exceed $134,793.56 for workers' comp coverage for fiscal year 25-26, declaring an emergency.
Second.
Not 57 cents.
Motion has been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Maldonado to approve ordinance 1648, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to expend payment nope, sorry, wrong one. Ordinance number 1649, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to expend payment to Safe Corporation in the amount of $134,793.56 for workers' comp coverage for fiscal year 2025, 2026, and declaring an emergency and second reading on July 2nd, 2025. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? That passes 6-0. Let's see, items C, D, and E, we have already voted on and approved. Moving to item F is resolution number 1438, a resolution authorizing an inter-fund loan from the Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund to the Library Fund in the amount of $500,000 and authorizing repayment of the interfund loan in fiscal year 2025, 2026. Is that you, Mr. Acting City Administrator, or is that Scott? Scott, please fill us in on the Perpetual Care Fund.
So this has been part of the budget that was approved by Budget Committee. However, Oregon Revised Statute does provide that one fund may loan another fund for operational purposes, provided that that loan is approved by resolution of the governing body, and that such loan is scheduled to be repaid within that subsequent fiscal year. This is kind of rinse and repeat of what we've seen in the past. We see this for the library fund, to be able to use that majority of it to make sure that they're able to operate. And then when they receive their large amount from the county, or right around the January date, then we calculate the interest and make that full payment back to the cemetery fund. This is basically just making sure that we're abiding by the requirement that we have this as a resolution in order to perform this task.
So remind me, did we, as part of our budgeting, I know it was on the table and I don't, say we're going to limit the interest that the library would pay, or was that part of the final budget? Because I know that was part of
Limiting the interest?
the interest on this loan, because that was part of, wasn't that part of the discussion? Is that the interest on the loan for the library is part of the library budget? Am I being like really
Counselor Patton?
spacing out?
No, you're not. Yes, there was discussion about what would it be possible for us as a council to decide that the library would not have to pay that interest back to that fund? And so my question was going to be, by approving this, does this preclude us from having that conversation later? Or?
You want to go?
No, does that preclude us from having the conversation about, can we give the library interest forgiveness for this coming year?
Yeah, and I actually reported on this last year when I had called and talked with Department of Revenue in regards to this. And there's no requirement that interest be paid back.
Okay.
It's almost like robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I believe last year there was still the want to be able to make the cemetery perpetual care fund whole and continue to pay the interest. But that's up to the body to determine if they don't want to pay the interest. There's no requirement to have an interest calculation.
So come January, when the funds come in from the library, and that comes to us as a budgetary item to move those funds, or however that comes to us, the council then can decide, no, the library can keep that interest loan payment, just pay the amount back.
If you decide that you don't want to pay interest, then yes, we still have appropriated an interest payment.
Sure.
So if we determine to keep it that way, then yes, then we've already appropriated it and we can make that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then my other question, follow-up question to that, and that was the part of that. There was talk about perhaps using a different fund that the library, with a different tranche of money, that the library would not then need to pay back the interest. Is that something that we can investigate for next fiscal year?
Yes, I would recommend doing it next fiscal year because we've already kind of, once it gets approved, then those funds are not going to be.
I'm not going to do that to you this year.
Yeah, thank you.
No. So I guess that's something to put on the bubble as far as looking at some other amount of money
From a different
for next
fund,
year that we can do this loan from. I do also want to let folks know that I did have a chat with, oh my gosh, why have I just forgotten your name? Marissa, that years ago during the budget process, there was this whole thing that I had done where the library had the money over the course of several years. They essentially were given $200,000 for this purpose, and at some point in time, it was spent. And I had recommended that in moving forward, it might make sense for each year the library to squirrel a little bit of money away and build up their own funds. So instead of them borrowing the money from one of these funds and paying interest back, they're actually borrowing the money from themselves and then gaining the interest when they put that money back in for the next fiscal year. So that is also something that is on people's minds.
And maybe eventually they can lend money to other departments and get interest from them.
Possibly.
We totally would if we could.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? If none, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you.
I move to adopt resolution number 1438, a resolution authorizing an interfund loan from the Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund to the Library Fund in the amount of $500,000 and authorizing payment of the interfund loan in fiscal year 2026.
Second.
Motion's been made by Counselor Patton, seconded by Counselor Maldonado to approve Resolution 1438, a resolution authorizing an interfund loan from the Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund to the Library Fund in the amount of $500,000 and authorizing repayment of the interfund loan in FY 2026. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 6-0. Item G, let's consider resolution number 1439, shall we? A resolution extending workers' compensation coverage to volunteers of the City of Canby and repealing resolution 1413.
This is another rinse and repeat, is it not?
This is another rinse and repeat.
All right, well then I will move to approve Resolution 1439, a resolution extending workers' compensation coverage to volunteers of the City of Canby and repealing Resolution 1413.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Maldonado to, what are we going to do? Oh, we're going
The
to,
script isn't right, go to the proposed motion.
let's go to that one. Resolution extending, or sorry, I'm asking, the motion's been made to approve resolution number 1439. A resolution extending workers' compensation coverage to volunteers of the City of Canby and repealing resolution 1413. And basically, volunteers, if they're volunteering at the city, they get hurt, miss work, we're picking up the workers' comp piece. That's what the rinse and repeat is.
So I have a question on that.
Okay.
And I'm totally in favor of it, but I do wonder what the cost of that is. Is that an extra cost? Is that measurable? Is it saying that's where the $100,000 increase comes from? Or is that, I'm just wondering if there's a cost to it.
I suspect that there is a cost to it. Again, it would be based on, I think, previous years' workers' comp pieces for volunteers. But
It'd be nice to break that down, maybe even for next year, so that when we approve it, we also recognize that there's a cost and approve the cost as well. I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a great idea to cover them, but I'm just saying, if something has a cost, it should be probably disclosed and stated that says, this is how much it costs to insure the volunteers.
yeah, I mean, do we know if there was any workers' comp pieces for volunteers?
I do not know of any.
I could say I know that, I don't have a breakdown, but that's included in the ordinance we did earlier with SAFE of the $134,000.
Yeah, this is SAFE, not the CIS.
And this specific ordinance, SAFE, requires us to have a resolution on, or an ordinance on this to cover the volunteers.
Well, yeah, and I'm cool with that. It's just, I'm wondering if we didn't cover volunteers, what's the cost difference, so that way you can,
I think you just said that it's already built in, and
so there is no cost difference whether we cover volunteers or not?
Yeah.
All right, if that's the answer to the question, then that's the answer.
Yeah, I'm George, is that?
I could find out if there is a breakdown of volunteers or not, but I know it's.
I'm just curious.
There's a risk not.
I know there's a risk not
doing it.
And I always just like, as a policy matter, to say, if we're voting on something, what's the cost? And we're fine with the cost, that's great.
Okay. Councilor Maldonado?
Generally, I do know with most worker comps that is covered in, it's on. I got the green light.
All right, I couldn't see.
It is covered in the initial plan. To cover volunteers may be a bit different. It may be a little bit of an increase. But if I'm not mistaken, that's what our initial plan is covering, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, motion's on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 6-0. Next item on ordinances and resolutions, 5H, is resolution number 1440, a resolution adopting a transfer of sewer not allocated contingency funds for the fiscal year 2024 and 2025. Mr. Schlag.
So this resolution, we recommend passing in order to stay in compliance with local budget law. Currently, in our not allocated, we are required to show the categories, so personnel services, material services, transfers out, any of the 5 major categories. In this particular case, we have seen that the additional cost for sewer billing has increased. And it doesn't look like it's been increased in the budget over the past few years, whether that was just overlooked, but as we started noticing that trend, we are not going to be able to cover the amount that we're seeing for charges for our sewer billing this year. And so our recommendation is to take $22,000 from contingency, transfer that into that materials and service category. Currently, our appropriation for materials and service was at $53,000. Adding the $22,000, we would have a revised appropriation of $75,000, dropping our contingency appropriation from $166,118 down to $144,118. So we have that built in just in case, and so that's what these are being utilized for. And this year, for the 2026 budget, we did increase that line item, so.
So either there will not be a allocation change,
Fingers crossed.
Or it'll be less than, we'll see, right? But again, hence why we have the funds roll the way that they do, so.
And this is just a resolution because it falls under that 10% that we don't need to have a supplemental budget. So it's just an act of the body to approve that.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification. Councilor Patton.
I move to adopt resolution number 1440, a resolution authorizing the transfer of appropriated funds within the 2024-2025 sewer not allocated fund budget.
Second.
Motion been made by Councilor Patton and seconded by Councilor Maldonado to approve resolution 1440, a resolution authorizing the transfer of appropriated funds within the fiscal year 24-25 sewer not allocated fund budget. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That also passes 6-0. Fabulous. That concludes our ordinances and resolutions. Scott, thank you. And thank you to your team for the hard work here at the finish line to get all that stuff caught up, so appreciate it. Next on the agenda is old business, but there doesn't seem to be any, so we're going to move on to new business, item 7, and that is the consider an interim city administrator contract with Randy Ely. If you have not, just to make everyone aware and catch everyone up, last week the decision was made to enter contract with Eileen Stein. The council made that decision, and then we quickly expedited the process of moving forward with finding an interim city administrator. Our acting city administrator, we thank you very, very much, Chief Tro, for taking that on and extending it for a couple additional days than the week that we'd promised. So thank you for your flexibility on that. And I want to thank, and there's a number of department heads here, but also those that might be watching at home. Thank you for just your professionalism this week and still getting in, getting work done and getting after it. So changes in leadership and decisions like that are not easy. So I thank you all for your continued efforts and hard work, keeping projects going in the city as we transition here. So yeah, so Mr. Ely is got a history of being a city manager and administrator. He lives in nearby Woodburn, so he's not too far away to make the commute into Canby every day. He's very excited by the sounds of it to be getting, dipping his toe back in and helping to run things here until we determine our pattern or what our objectives will be for moving forward with the process for a new city manager. So we do need a motion to approve interim city manager contract with Randy Ely. If someone would so make that motion.
Is there a draft motion?
I just gave it to you.
Oh, okay.
Yes, well, to authorize the acting city administrator to execute the contract.
Okay, if that's the case, Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize the acting city administrator to execute a contract with Randy Ely for interim city manager services.
Second.
Motion is made by Counselor Patton and seconded by Counselor Davis to have the acting city administrator sign off, execute the contract for city manager services with Randy Ely. Great.
I'll just jump in real fast to make sure everyone had a chance to look at the contract that went out yesterday, and if there were any questions anyone wanted to ask me at this time. Great.
Thank you.
I also want to say thanks to staff, chief, both Teresas were just, everyone was moving at the speed of excellence to get this wrapped up for you guys, and I'm excited to get Randy in here and get everyone working.
No, and Emily did a fabulous job helping get that wrapped up as quickly as we wanted to move. So thank you for your efforts as well, and Barry Elsner's efforts. So that was great. George, did you have something to say?
Just to add one thing, I spoke to Randy today. He's very excited to get started, and he will start actually this Monday at 8 a.m.
Wonderful. And that, I don't think I've ever seen you smile so big ever. And yeah, I'm not even going to comment, but yes. So any other discussion or comment by the council? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. We look forward to meeting Randy and getting things underway. All right, moving in, mayor's business, just a couple of things. I was going to talk about the city manager piece, but that's been taken care of. Wanted to let the council know that the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee and the Board of County Commissioners have submitted a letter to the legislature regarding the myriad of taxes for transportation that is soon to be voted upon. And the letter was addressing small transit in terms of allocating more funds specifically to smaller transit in Clackamas County. So that would be Canby Area Transit, Wilsonville, Smart, Sandy, and then the South Clackamas Transit District, which runs Malala and other parts of Clackamas County. So being that we have such a large county, and we're trying to work really hard to make sure that any budget money that comes out of that bill, that the smaller transit districts see a bigger portion of that to help with funding operations and whatnot. So as the co-chair to C4, I'm on that letter, so I just wanted to let everyone know of that, and that it seems to be that almost all the cities in Clackamas County signed on to that letter. So we'll see what comes of that with the vote coming up here at the state legislature. And the other piece that I have, two more, sorry, wanted to congratulate Lynette's grand opening today. They had the ribbon cutting. I just want to officially welcome them to downtown Canby and their business. So thank you for having your business here in town. And it's summertime. It's going to get hot, so stay hydrated, enjoy the river, but be careful, and get ready for the Canby events that will ensue over the next many months, right, Jamie? Tons to be had. So look at the calendar, pay attention to our website, watch social media. There's a lot of fun stuff, concerts, Canby's Big Weekend, mini car shows, all sorts of fun stuff. So please plug in and be involved and get engaged. So that's all that I have right now for tonight. I'm going to start, we'll go ladies first. Council President Hensley.
Oh, wow. I wasn't ready. Actually, I don't have a lot. I did go to the ribbon cutting for Lynette. It was very well attended. So I wanted to also welcome them and also express my dismay that there's still not a dog. But anyway.
There's still not a what?
A dog. It's a joke between her and I now.
Okay.
Shelley and I. Remember in the mock-ups there was a dog?
That is true.
There was a dog, and it's still not outside yet, but I might rectify that. Anyway, all that to say, do want to remind everybody that Knight's Bridge is closed, so while you're enjoying the river, do not try to enjoy it down at that park because it is not open. Don't float your boats underneath the bridge while they're working on it, and stay safe. That's all I have.
I will just add to that too, that allow yourself time. It is nights, so coming back into Canby, it is not, so far, it's been 2 days, 3 days. The road has been backed up to, it's just been backed up, so.
It's just been backed up.
That's all I
To
can tell you.
Wilsonville.
So grab a soda, make sure you've got
Take a snack.
snacks. It's definitely backed up, so thank you for that reminder, whatnot. We'll go with Councilor Waterman.
Okay. We have not had a bike and ped committee meeting yet. It's still. Sorry. We have not had a bike and ped committee meeting yet. We have, I believe, next month is the next one. Just vacations, et cetera. On the library side, we have, let me go back to the bike and ped. We do have 2 openings currently on the bike and ped committee. That applications are due by 6/30. We have 1 term that ends 2026 in June and 1 term that starts on 7/1/25 and ends on 6/30/2028. So if you are interested in the bike and pedestrian activities within Canby, please sign up and reach out to the city. On the library side, we have sort of a retirement of Rick Meyer. He's been a very long time member of the library board and just in the community in general, like we're talking like I think 20 plus years, right? So he is officially retiring down from the board. And we had his replacement open and the board voted for a member to join. And we actually heard from her tonight. Zoe Myers, different Meyer, but, and so they voted her in. She will probably see her recommendation here next month. And also the change, Amy Noss was, I believe it was Amy, was voted as the new chair, and Lois Brooks will be vice chair, kind of stepping down to help out. And so those are the changes on the library advisory board. And so there are no more openings on that.
Okay. So openings on bike and ped.
Correct.
Thank you for announcing that. I appreciate it. Councilor Patton.
Oh, mixing it up. I like it.
I want Gordon to earn his paycheck tonight with the cameras.
Okay, so as far as things that I will chat about here, yes, the road work is insane. My Barlow was a hot mess yesterday, heading to Wilsonville. So I have found either take the Canby Ferry and enjoy the ride, or go to Haynes, go to Ellen Road and go through Aurora. It is just, do not go down Barlow. You will want to stab yourself in the face. Regarding the river access, there was some citizens that came to me and asked me if there's anything on the city website or anything, or any thought into putting out some PSAs that park is closed down there, and these are some other safe river accesses within the community, because I know there's like an area down at Community Park where people try to access, but it's not particularly safe and that sort of thing. So I don't know if that's something that the Parks and Rec Board and city staff would like to look into, but it might be smart to make some sort of recommendations as to how people can access the river with that closed down there. I will say, living on North Birch Street has been a dream. I have been able to get in and out of my street whenever I want to. The traffic, the speed bumps, we could peel them up right now and it would be beautiful, but only till October. So I'm gonna enjoy it and my neighbors are gonna enjoy it while we last. I will be attending Canby Pride in the Park this Sunday. I'm looking very forward to that. That event grows every year, and so I'm looking forward to coming down for that. As far as the Heritage and Landmarks Commission, I've not been able to make any of their meetings lately. I've been doing a lot of work travel. I will be at their next meeting on Monday, and we have 2 adult openings and 1 student opening on that board. So if you are so interested in learning more about the history of the city and influencing that, I strongly recommend you reaching out and signing up for that. Same with Planning Commission. I have not been able to make some of their meetings, but I'm definitely going to be at the next one because they're going to be talking about the fence codes. And that has been a special little project of mine from my time when I was on the Planning Commission, so I'm really anxious to hear what they have to say about that. The other thing is the Willamette Falls Landing Heritage Area Coalition. I had mentioned that we have moved into the historic Westland City Hall, and we are happy to report that there are 2 conference or meeting rooms there that are now going to be available for rent. So if you are a community organization that needs space to hold a meeting, there's conference video services and all of those things. So I encourage you to go to the website if you need such a service, and it will be open. The plan is to have it all open after hours because a lot of times it's hard for groups to find places to have meetings later in the evening, and the goal is to have that available at more times that are conducive to people who work later and such. One of the things I will advocate for is getting we've been working a lot on the policies and operating guidelines for the council. There's some really good information in there that I would like to see get over the finish line. And so if there's a way to prioritize that on a future agenda so that we can get that ratified, there will probably be some changes that we'll make to it, but at least to get the information that we have now in there, because there are some updates that I think will help us moving forward. And then the last thing I will say is I'm going to talk really quickly about public comment. So the last few meetings, I've been deeply concerned with some of the things that have been said in public comment. And so this is what I would like to, these are the thoughts that I will share on this. We, members of the council and the mayor, are elected officials. We have the ability to defend ourselves, either to defend ourselves or not defend ourselves when the public takes issue with the things that we do and don't do. We have a mechanism to defend ourselves. However, city employees do not have that same mechanism. And so it is very upsetting to me when people from the community come in here and talk poorly about members of city staff, because they are not afforded the same opportunity to defend themselves as we are. And that is by design and by law. There are things that they can and cannot say, and there's things that they can and cannot do, and that is regulated by employment laws and contracts with our labor unions and stuff. And so anybody who comes in here and says that they command a full reckoning of facts when it comes to various things that are pertaining to city staff, the fact of the matter is they don't. And by law, they can't. And if they do, then it means that there is a hole in the system that needs to be plugged. Our city staff, whether you like them or not, does a great service to this entire city. They work very hard, and I do not appreciate people coming in and attacking them. You can attack me, you can attack people up here, and the mayor if you want, but I am telling you right now, city staff should be off limits. It's not cool. And that's what I have tonight.
Thank you, Councilor Patton. I appreciate those comments and totally agree with you.
You lost track.
No, I did not.
Okay.
Councilor Stearns.
Well, wasn't able to go to the Canby utility meeting because there was a parking meeting at the same night, and since I'm also where I had as a business person who does business in the downtown Canby, I thought I should attend that, and I think that was very informative. And there are going to be some suggestions on what to do about parking, especially in the downtown corridor. One of the things that I'm sort of enlightened by is that it's really, really packed on certain streets, but one street over, not so much. So perhaps people might have to walk a little bit to resolve the parking in downtown problem. But I think for that, Jamie, that'll be a recommendation before the council sometime in July, I think. We'll review that. Went to the Bridging Cultures event on Saturday. That was very nice. Talked to some of the Bridging Culture people there, and that was fun. They're going to have one this Saturday, I think about noon or ish, like lunchtime, 11:30 or something. Encourage you to attend that. That's going to be, I believe, at the Locust Street Park. Went to the Citizens Engagement Academy. That was well put on. Only suggestion on that is there was a lot of good stuff, and that could have gone on for another hour, I think, with all three. We had presentations by the fire department, by Canby Utility, and the school, and the school board, and that was very interesting and enlightening. So thank you, Jamie, for that. That was a good job there. I was going to say, the one thing I just would like to say, as far as me, Councilor Patton, and Council Waterman, we've been developing a good city administrator review, or at least we thought it's good anyway. And I would just put in the ear that we might want to pursue that. And what better thing to practice on as a brand new intern city administrator. So I just want to put a bug into your mayor on that, and I think that's everything to say today.
Great. Councilor Maldonado.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I think that's everybody, right? Oh, sorry. Councilor Davis, please. You have a report, I'm sure.
That was funny.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Back of your head.
Oh, I felt it.
I wanted to thank George Turtle for stepping up to the plate and helping us out, so thank you very much. The Canby Adult Center, I attended their meeting, they approved their budget. They continue to work on their plans for the move. No date has been set yet. I know that they have permits in and are waiting on those permits so that they can move forward with whatever it is that they have to do, but they're all very excited about trying to make that happen as quickly as possible to actually move out of the building before something catastrophic happens with the air conditioning system or heating system or whatever. Park and Rec meeting was hosted at Public Works. Thank you, Spencer. Great job in setting that up and running the meeting. The consulting firm and Don Hardy were there again to talk about, mainly they had some agenda items, but the main agenda item was to go over the project list so that the committee had those in front of them, and then they'll be coming back to the committee again, but in between that, they'll hold a work session with the council in regards to those project lists and cost as they move forward. But Dawn and the consulting firm are doing a great job on that in regards to input from the Park and Rec Committee. So a great job on their part. One of the things that they went through in the committee meeting was identifying those projects as high. In other words, within the next 5 years, potentially these things will happen. And then medium, and then low, or maybe if funds are available. But it's all dependent upon the amount of funds that are available in order that are eligible for that meet the criteria. So those things will be presented to the city council as we move forward. We did have a person attend from the neighborhood association of an Ivy Ridge. As you recall, there was a piece of property up in Ivy Ridge that is undeveloped for parks, and right now it's just sitting there as a pile of dirt. And so that neighborhood association's been talking amongst themselves. Yeah, Jason?
It's up there by, it's up, Ivy, isn't it the one up there by the wetlands? Or no, is that, which side of town is that?
It's on the other side of 13th, past Hope Village, past Marquee Care, and you turn right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you turn right, and it's right in there, but it's about a 1 to 2 acre parcel, Spencer, probably, yeah, up there. And at one point, we had an opportunity, prior councils, to have the developer actually level that out, put in some sidewalks, put in some grass, make it look nice. And at that time, the decision was made not to do that. And so now here, hence, we got a lot of houses up there with this vacant piece of land and dirt. And so the neighborhood association is talking amongst themselves as far as what do they want that to look like as we move forward in the future. Is it eligible on any of the project lists as we move forward for SDCs for helping develop that? They understand there's a budget woe right now and not a lot of funds, and that we haven't even talked about that park at this point. So it's just, I appreciate the neighborhood association coming together and starting to talk amongst themselves. They're really being cooperative as we move forward with this, but they said that they'll have a representative attend those meetings, which we've been having a lot more representation at those meetings from neighborhood associations. So we appreciate that. They had the election of officers. Kara Hawkins is the new secretary, and Barry Johnson was reelected as chairperson for the Park and Rec Committee. I just had a question too. I don't know if Canby Kids has been paid. Scott, do you happen to know if Canby Kids has filed their amount? They have like $8,000 in the budget.
It's budgeted, I think we've received an invoice.
An invoice from them, so that's one thing I think we might want to contact them, and, or somebody should contact them and see if they want to file an invoice for that money that's in the budget. Because I know we have money in next year's budget too, I believe, for Canby Kids. So, and then, has anybody heard anything on the power for the OLIC? Yeah.
Yes. So I was in conversation with Representative Drazen's office, I think the day after OLCC was here, and actually the PGE CEO was at the Capitol, and they were able to get time with her and had some conversation with her. And then I also had follow-up with the Canby Utility Board Chair person, Thompson. We had a very lengthy conversation as well about what's going on. So as it stands right now, so Canby Utility has, there's the potential, or there is a feasibility study that they're in the midst of. Canby, or PGE, is aware of the issues, and so they're working on trying to figure out how to expedite that process. And so there is a lot of dialogue between those entities currently. So I don't have a time frame on anything. I just know that between Canby Utility, Representative Drazen's office, because of the impact that not having the OLCC warehouse operation and whatnot. So there's a lot of moving parts that there is, but there was a lot of movement since our last city council meeting on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's all I have.
If I may, I also had a chat with Chair Thompson, and one of the things that she had pointed out to me was this feasibility study was something that had been known needed to happen, and it was originally sort of seen as a formality that we just have to do this thing, and apparently PG&E did not let on that this actually had far more consequences than what they had alluded to.
Yeah.
And so when this all, like, OLCC and these folks had been forewarned that this could be a thing, but everybody just thought it was just a foregone conclusion, and now all of a sudden it isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, speaking of that, thank you, Jason, there seemed to be a communication gap in what I think the powers that be know to be. The powers that be understand what might be going in terms of the buildings at the old, formerly known as the Wygant property, versus what actually is being proposed. So there's communication pieces that then there was miscommunication, like that OLCC and the fairgrounds were a go, but yet there's not been paperwork filed or given to them. Basically, it's called right to serve, that hasn't been given to them, which has raised red flags. So all of those entities are trying to get into the same room and figure out what's going on, and that's part of the communication piece that they're all working with each other on as well. And I know that Jamie and I had some conversation. Have you heard anything more, Jamie?
Nothing more, and I know that Don also has been having some conversations. So we're watching it continue and doing what we can to help facilitate those conversations and move things forward.
Perfect. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. It's a very interesting process for sure. Okay. Thank you all for your comments. Appreciate it in your reports. Acting City Administrator, Business and Staff Reports.
I don't have much. I do want to report on one thing. We did have our Touch a Truck event here on June 5th in front of City Hall.
Yes.
It was very well attended. We did in conjunction with First Thursdays. We also had the car show going next door at Thriftway. Downtown was packed. It was great to see. Just thank you to everybody who came and all the participants who brought actually vehicles for people. It was great. And a shout out to Tyler Nizer, who really helped coordinate the event and get the word out. So
fantastic.
So many kiddos.
Did you touch a truck?
I did touch
There were so many kiddos.
That's scary.
As far as I know, they're still.
Teresa, did Mr. Perez want to address his comments here on second opportunity, or?
He was having trouble connecting.
Yeah, he's having troubles connecting. I don't know what else to do to help him, because when he emailed me this afternoon, he had a different email than what he had given me once I got to the meeting. And the one that he initially emailed me on, I made him a panelist, which would not require him to register, but the other email requires him to register, so I'm not sure what problems he's having.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's in Joseph, so.
Okay, well, hopefully, I'm sure we'll catch him the next round as well. Teresa, action review, and we need you to read them in a really interesting fashion, okay?
Yes, animated even.
I feel like being just boring old me. I've had a crazy week.
Yes, you have.
You've approved the consent agenda, and you approved ordinances 1648 and 1649 to a second reading on July 2nd, 2025, and declaring them an emergency. You have adopted resolutions 1435, 1436, 1437, 1438, 1439, and 1440. And you also approved the acting city administrator to enter into a contract to hire Rick Ely as the interim city administrator.
And I think it's Randy.
Randy Ely.
It's what?
It's Randy?
Randy Ely.
Oh, Randy.
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that.
No.
It's okay.
Hey, it's a team effort. Perfect. Thank you very much. We're not going to adjourn right now. We do have an executive session here for the city council this evening. So I need a motion, if somebody would, to send us into executive session.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move that we move into executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660, parent 2, parent H, to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed, and ORS 192.660, parent 2, parent F, to consider information on records that are exempt by law from public inspection.
Thank you. I need a second, please. Great, it's been moved and seconded to move into executive session, ORS 192.660, parent 2, parent H. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we are officially going into executive session. Canby, we will say goodnight, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.